kidding. We are all gonna die. I'm just sorry.
Hello, welcome to Popcorn and Prosecco, where we talk about movies. This is episode 75, and Angie Han.
Hello.
And myself, Kristy Puchko, will be talking about the Hunger Games new trailer and Pixels. Perry's not with us this week because she was globetrotting and girls got a break, so we'll see her again next week. So we're going to start off with the Hunger Games trailer for Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 2, which it's the same one that played at Comic-Con, right, Angie?
Yeah, as far as I can tell, yes.
Yeah, so Angie actually saw that at Hall H. We were both at Comic-Con, but in very different places 90% of the time. But yeah, so the new trailer is hit. People are very excited about it because this is the conclusion of one of the biggest franchises the world has ever seen. And on top of that, something I appreciate, a female-fronted franchise. So Katniss and her crew are reunited with Peeta, and now they're going to take on the Capitol and take on Snow. They're actually taking their fight to the Capitol, and the new trailer has shown a lot of what that entails, which includes like crazy mutant creatures. It includes sludge waves, which I read the book, but it was so long ago.
Yeah, I'm feeling the same way. I'm like, I feel like if I had read it more recently, I'd be like, oh my god, that's finally here. But I was like, yeah, this seems vaguely familiar. I don't know. I mean, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter because what I want out of this is a good movie, not like a super word-by-word faithful adaptation of the book. So
Especially
I think the trailer looks great. Like, I think it looks fun and interesting, and those creatures, even if I don't remember them from the books, look really intriguing in their own right for the movie.
Yeah, and that's the thing. The third book, I read them all in like a blinding rush. I remember
I think everyone did, yep.
Yeah, I remember I read the first one literally in one night. Literally, I started reading it at 10 o'clock. I said, I'm just going to read a little bit before I go to bed, and the sun came up, and I finished the book. That's what happened. The second one I read in stages. The third one was a slog because I feel like the third book feels rushed. Like people were being like, "Oh my God, Suzanne Collins, we have to get this book out," and she was like, "Okay, so instead of actually showing, I'm just gonna." And then they explained to Katniss all the stuff that happened while she was unconscious, and that was the third book was kind of a letdown for me. So I was excited when we saw the first part of Mockingjay Part 1, which seemed to be doing its own thing with the third story. For one, we get more Effie, which I loved. And for two, Katniss is proactive instead of constantly being like, I don't know what's happening. Please explain it to me. So I'm excited to see what they do in the third movie. There are teases in the trailer, which I'm not going to go into what they tease, but that suggests that one big moment is still going to be in the third movie. And it breaks our hearts. But there are other things in it that I genuinely just don't remember. Like, someone on Twitter was excited when that tiger-looking woman showed up, and I was like, nah, I don't know what that is. And I actually had to look up.
That.
I didn't remember it all. I had to look it up, and I was like, oh, Tigress, who was a stylist in The Capitalist and is now a defector. And I was like, okay. But I feel like that was less about people being like, ooh, I love the character Tigress, and more just being like, look at this cool thing we have in the movie. Which I'm down for, because I think this is going to be our bleakest movie of the four.
If it's like the book and if it stays faithful to the ending, I know I just said it doesn't have to be faithful to the ending, but if it does, it actually ends really dark. I remember one of the things that I loved about the books and about the movie series so far is that it's, as far as like a big mainstream entertainment, especially one for younger people goes, it's like really uncompromising, really bleak, really dark. It like doesn't shy away from the horrors of war. And that's one thing I've always admired about it, because a lot of war movies kind of glorify war in their way, even as they show it's bad. And I know some people make the argument that you can't like have a war movie that doesn't glorify it to some extent, and that might be true, but I do think that the ending of the Hunger Games is just, it's like a knife, it's like someone's twisting a knife in your gut. It's very sad.
It's going to be rough. And then what's interesting is that, they've been building this really thoughtfully in the movies, where the first Hunger Games was gutting, but very carefully avoiding too much violence because it was a new thing, and they were also kind of trying to get that PG-13 rating. And then the second movie, we got a little more into the violence. And the third movie, we're seeing full-on war, and we're seeing the revolution of the districts with that dam scene still just gives me chills. That was amazing. And then that song and now we're coming into the final stretch where Katniss is leading an army, and it's I'm already having my feelings and my emotions, and hopefully by November I'll be okay.
It's gonna be a rough several months for you. I mean, I feel like the first movie started out with Katniss, and then each movie kind of expands a bit, and now it's like bringing it all back in. And I feel like in the trailer you really see all the work they put into world building paying off to a huge extent.
Yeah. And it's interesting because there's all these cuts to characters that we care about. And like also, there's going to be the Plutarch thing where it's going to be really hard watching Philip Seymour Hoffman again. And but yeah, I'm excited. I'm also really excited because the last movie ended on such a dark note that I mean, I know this was debated, but you're going to break this plot into 2 movies. I think that was the perfect place to break it, where Katniss feels like she's won the day, and then she discovers how broken Peeta is. So now we've saved Peeta's body, and the second part is going to be not just about saving his soul, but saving Pandemic. I don't know. It's whatever. Panem. So yeah, I'm really excited about the new movie. I think this trailer's great, and I think that we've seen before the marketing for Hunger Games is always so on point. So I'm waiting for them to get a little more creative with the marketing.
Speaking of world building, like one of the things that's been really fun about the Hunger Games, even though it's not actually part of the canon, is just like the lengths that the marketing team will go to make you feel like you are in Panem, like you're one of them, like this applies to you.
Yeah.
And it's really effective. It's really fun. It makes you feel like cool and like included, even though obviously you're just like a person that they're trying to get to fork over $20 for a ticket. But still.
You know what though? That's the thing. I believe the people making these movies love them, and I believe.
Oh no, I don't mean that it's entirely cynical. I just mean at the end of the day, though, it's a marketing campaign, but it's a very effective one that I think really taps into what people relate to about these movies.
Exactly. It understands why people love these movies and expands that into a world that's interesting in the films and even outside the films, which that this week's movie accomplished either of those things.
Shall we dive into the next big subject?
Let's do it.
Okay, we're done with Hunger Games. We're moving on to Pixels, the new movie starring Adam Sandler, directed by Chris Columbus. And here's a synopsis. When aliens misinterpret video feeds of classic arcade games as declaration of war, they attack the Earth in the form of the video games. It's based on a short film by, is it Patrick Jean or something like that?
Yeah, but weirdly, it takes his premise of pixelated 8-bit characters attacking New York and spins it into a Futurama plot, which I just want to get that out of the way, because Futurama actually made it aliens coming from Earth that look like,
Yeah, so I did not like this movie very much. There were parts of it I downright hated. And yet, to my great surprise, I'm one of the people that liked it more based on the reviews I've read of this movie. So that tells you something about how shitty it is.
I think when we came out, your quote was, despite the blatant
I will tell you what my quote was. I said, it's a shame about the blatant misogyny, because there's actually a pretty fun movie in here otherwise. And I stand by that. My biggest problem with the movie is, is there a mainstream filmmaker that holds women in more contempt than Adam Sandler? Like, the way he treats female characters in this film I was cringing. Like, I was, physically just ugh, every time a woman character was on the screen. It's to the point where I wish he would just stop having women characters. This movie would be less sexist if they just literally pretended women didn't exist. That's how bad it is.
I actually said in my review, and I said, it's a movie that misunderstands nerd culture. One, in that it thinks that nerd culture hasn't had a huge rise, where it still treats nerd like it's a 4-letter word. Two, in that you get the cliched character of Josh Gad, who's like, I'm a 30-something virgin, and I live in my grandma's basement, and I'm really in love with a video game character, and And three, that it just, I said, it excludes women and people of color to a large degree.
I wish they would have excluded them even fucking more, so I wouldn't have to sit through those.
And that's exactly it. I said, when they actually do include women, I actually wish they hadn't, because women in this movie are either sexual trophies or nags. And if there's a woman in a position of power, like Lieutenant Colonel Van Patten, she is subjugated to that she has to keep falling in love with Adam Sandler, which makes zero sense, because Adam Sandler, there was a time where he was kind of cute, where he was kind of charming. That time is gone. He looks like he wants to die rather than be in this movie. He looks so unhappy. And then there's actually a point in the film where she commends him on brushing his teeth.
Kristy, it's a very nifty callback to an earlier scene where he admitted he didn't brush his teeth and then tried to kiss her 10 minutes later, and then was shocked and dismayed and offended when she was like, I just met you, I don't want to kiss you.
Yeah, she's in also one of the worst spots in her life, where she has admitted that her husband left her for a 19-year-old. Oh, and also we can't talk about like her without talking about the 19-year-old named Cinnamon who spells her name wrong, because like you can't compliment one woman without tearing another woman down, apparently. Like, it's just crazy. Like, you read this script and it's like, it's the kind of thing like in the 80s that you might have been able to get away with, but it's like, it's literally like Adam Sandler has been just in his mansion with his money and his dude friends, not paying attention to the way society has moved on. He's
a fucking limbo champ. Every time you think the bar can't get any fucking lower for Adam Sandler, whoop, there it goes.
It really is. It's just, and it's like, I mean, that stuff was, I'm not even mad about it as much. I was just like, a fucking course. Like, it was so predictable to come from him at this point.
I know it's predictable, but I was still very frustrated. And part of the reason is because, as I was saying at the beginning of this review, I actually think that there's some good stuff in here otherwise. I know one other major complaint that has nothing to do with the sexism is that it doesn't follow the rules of the video games that it's actually referencing. And I do see that, and it is kind of like a weird choice that doesn't really make sense and kind of seems like it's more like, oh, it's okay, people are nostalgic, we don't have to like do anything with it, we just have to reference it, it's fine. I get that, but at the same time, some of those scenes are so fun. Like, if you've seen the trailers, there's like that Pac-Man scene where they're just like zipping around the city and they're the ghosts and they're chasing Pac-Man, and I thought that was spectacular fun. Like, I was just enjoying watching them like driving around. Like, it looks really cool. The 3D is actually surprisingly well done for the action sequences. I feel like if you are gonna see it, then you should watch it in 3D for the action scenes. So there were parts of it that I really liked, and I think that it's a fun idea, even if it is a Futurama ripoff, that's fine. It's a fun idea, and there was a good movie in here. It's just that I couldn't bear to watch so much of it because I know I shouldn't be surprised that Adam Sandler is being terribly misogynistic, but that doesn't make it any more enjoyable for me to see it happen.
And it's also just like, it's not just the misogyny, it's that like Adam Sandler's character is a dick that I did not want to hang out with. Like, I didn't like any of the main characters. I take that back. I liked Peter Dinklage as Eddie, not because he's a good guy, but because he is so spectacularly gross and weird that it just kind of worked for me. Like, Dinklage is doing an accent. I don't know where the hell it came from. I don't know where he's supposed to be. He's like this rock star in his own mind, so he just affects this accent and you're just like, okay. But at least he was fun. Like, and and I also Andrew, I think his name was Brambridge or Cambridge or something, who played the younger version of him in the first 5 minutes. I really liked that character too, but like or those performances. But aside from that, it's like Michelle Monaghan I think is great, and she was amazing in Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, so fun and so smart, but she doesn't get to be in on the jokes here. She is just the thing that is lusted after, and the damsel that has to get rescued, and has to get rescued while having a sexual innuendo made at her expense, because that's just where Sandler operates from. And I do think the action scenes are fun, but they're so few and far between. Like, I find it so frustrating how little of the movie is actually about those scenes. So much of it is just Adam Sandler's shitty, like, moany, mopey, quitting character sitting there being like, my life didn't turn out to be that exciting because I lost a arcade competition in 1982. And I'm just like, oh, whatever. Like, this
There's a weird, like, bizarre, like, bitterness to the character, and not in a way that's interesting or, like, fun or, tells us anything about the character or the world. Like, just in a way where, like, you feel like Adam Sandler, despite being richer than fucking God and having the kind of clout where he can tell studios, I want to go on a vacation to Africa, so you're going to set my next movie there. Like, he seems like weirdly bitter about something. It's absurd. Like so much of his early interaction with Michelle Monaghan is that he's like, like how Best Buy has their Geek Squad? He's like one of those guys, essentially, only even more shittily dressed. And he's just met Michelle Monaghan, and she doesn't want to kiss him, and he gets so upset, and he's like, if I was a billionaire and you were on my yacht, you would fucking kiss me. And that's like an actual thing that he says. Okay, not with the fucking, because it's a PG-13 movie,
but then, and she effectively plays into that by not answering the question, which I thought you could have just responded like, I don't know you, I'm going through an ugly divorce,
also,
and like,
okay,
get the fuck out. Like, I don't want to kiss you. That's not my, like,
yeah.
why?
If a woman decides she'd rather kiss a billionaire on a yacht than a Geek Squad thing, that is her prerogative. It doesn't, like, I don't know why it also, comes from this idea that Adam Sandler deserves this gorgeous woman who is more, like, on every level, she is more high status than him.
She's educated, she has a good job, she's like married and has a house. She has her shit together despite the fact that she's going through a divorce.
Adam Sandler's the guy that can't even fucking brush his teeth before going to work.
Exactly. But we're supposed to think they're on the same level because he's good at video games. I find that so
No, because
gross.
It's not because he's good at video games. It's because he's a white guy. It's because he's Adam Sandler. The video games have nothing to do with it. Even before she finds out that he's good at video games and it's going to save the world, like, the movie's like, oh, she's a stuck-up bitch for turning him down.
That's actually true. He proves herself to him by like saving the world, but the movie definitely is on his side already. That like what's up her ass? And it's like, why? Why is she supposed to be interested in him? It's so grotesque. There's actually a point, and I talked about this in my review for Spinoff too, where Adam Sandler says to his friend President Chewie,
President Kevin James.
yeah, he says, "Stop it," or he's like, we're too old. It's gross," referring to this dumb game where they talk about celebrities, like female celebrities they want to bang. And I thought because it happened so early in the movie that it was going to be like, I know, guys, I get it. Like it was going to be his self-realization, and then we were going to have a really smart movie.
No,
but
that was just setting up that Adam Sandler is a good person because he hasn't yet ditched Michelle Monaghan for a 19-year-old stripper named Cinnamon.
She was a Pilates instructor.
I'm sorry.
Stripper, it was like the new version of the stripper though, because for some reason we want to decide that if someone's a Pilates instructor, it means that they're like a vapid asshole. It's such a gross, it's a gross stereotype. It's a stupid movie, and like it's supposed to be for kids, which I find so bizarre because there is stuff in there.
I find that really upsetting. It's teaching kids terrible things about how like male and female people should interact.
Exactly.
And I mean, I'm not usually one to like wring my hands and be like, oh no, the children, they can't learn about the sex or anything like that. But it is kind of normalizing this idea that as long as you're a dude, you deserve to have any woman, no matter how beautiful, just fall at your feet. You don't even have to brush your teeth. You don't have to have a job. Like, I mean, I'm not saying that people who don't brush their teeth and don't have jobs don't deserve love. I'm just saying, though, like, you're not entitled to any woman you want. And this movie kind of is just like, well, yeah, you are. Like, not to get too spoilery, but, you know, there's even, like, Josh Gad is established as this, like, horrible, like, I mean, like, the movie kind of likes him, and it's Josh Gad, and he's having fun with the role, but he's, like, a really creepy guy that
he is absolutely creepy.
He tries to roofie Adam Sandler, not for sexual purposes, for other related things. And the movie posits that even that guy deserves to have whatever woman that he wants, and it's just...
Well, even Eddie, who, like, almost got the world destroyed, who's, like, a totally disgusting human being as a person, still gets his dream women at the end. It's just it's so insulting. And then someone actually, I'm not going to get into who, someone I know actually said, were you excited that Pixels had a female main character? And I was like, she's not a character. Michelle Monaghan just gets to wring her hands or flirt with Adam Sandler. Like, that's so insulting to her. She is a good actress. This blows. Like, ugh, like I came out of Pixels like annoyed, and then when I wrote my review, I don't normally like writing negative reviews, but fuck did I enjoy writing this one, because fuck this movie and fuck Adam Sandler. I am so tired of him acting like he, you know what, no, he doesn't even act like he gives a shit. It's like Blended all over again, where it's like he shows up for 20 days, mopes around in front of camera, and then gets a shit ton of money. It's gross, and I'm so tired of it. Like, I beyond don't recommend you see Pixels. I recommend that you actively tell people not to see Pixels. Like I said in my review and Spinoff, like if Wreck-It Ralph is a love letter to video games, this movie doesn't give a fuck. This movie is that sext in the middle of the night that's like, you up? Like, it doesn't give a shit. It's insulting.
That's a pretty good way of putting it. I mean, because... you know, even putting aside all the misogyny and the sexism and the Adam Sandler laziness, like as we said, one of the things that's weird about it is that it's like, we're going to play a Pac-Man game, but we're not going to follow the Pac-Man rules. We're going to play a Donkey Kong game, but we're not going to follow the Donkey Kong rules. And it's just
we're going to have Qbert show up and make him speak English for no apparent reason.
It's these things that I'm like, you know, like I don't expect the movie to be completely faithful to the rules of the game because it's a movie and you don't have to be completely as faithful to source material, but it's to the point where you're like, well, why did you... It wouldn't have been that hard for you to change it. And it didn't bother me while I was watching it that much, especially because I don't have that much emotion. I wasn't a video game kid. I don't have that much emotional investment in it. But still, like, it's like another sign of how lazy this movie is.
Well, I wouldn't have cared, except that the movie itself makes a big point of that the game's rules have to be followed.
That's
like,
true.
That's actually a plot point. But then it completely throws that out the window and just hopes you don't notice. Like, and it's like, also, lots of people have played Donkey Kong. It's not that hard to remember how the hell to play Donkey Kong. So when they start playing real fast and loose with the rules and a climax, you're like, what? Like, it just really feels like, I feel like Chris Columbus wanted to make a fun movie, but then he has to push back against the fact that his star is also a producer on the movie because Happy Madison made this movie.
I completely feel like that because I mean, the action scenes are fun to watch. I really do think that they look really good. They're like, and there were parts of the action scenes where I was like sitting there like with a huge smile on my face because it was just fun. It felt different from like all the other action movies we've seen. It was really exciting. Like those parts were good. There's also a good running gag where the aliens keep sending their messages through like old footage of like 80s stars. It's like a really weird gag, but it's like more amusing than not. Like there are like definitely touches of like the movie that it could have been had it not been a fucking Happy Madison, Adam Sandler movie.
Yeah, and I think that Adam Sandler's energy really hurts it because there's some things that are ridiculous in the movie, which fine, like I have no problem with that. It's a summer movie, it's supposed to be a family movie, that's fine. But because he is so just like this the entire movie, it like doesn't give you the energy to go along and enjoy that premise. Instead, it kind of makes you focus on some of the plot holes and some of the shit that just doesn't hold up and like I don't want to do that when I go to see a movie about like video games attacking the world. I just want to have fun and kick back. But it's like this
Feels like a
movie
massive
refuses
missed
to let you do that.
opportunity.
Yeah, it's absolutely. It's
Like
and
imagine
man,
this
I hope
movie-
it crashes and burns. I hope it's such a massive flop because it's an ugly movie. It just doesn't give a fuck about its audience, and I find that really insulting.
I feel bad for Chris Columbus because I really feel like he tried, and I feel like the touches in here that work are thanks to him. However, because I'm so tired of Adam Sandler, I also really kind of hope this crashes and burns. And I mean, maybe he's already on a downhill slope. Like, Blended didn't do that well. His next movie is going to be on Netflix, which I know Netflix is trying to position itself as, like, a serious film distributor. But, I mean, I feel like I had heard it was a project that the studios were like, so...
Yeah, and from what we've heard about The Ridiculous Six, it's kind of understandable the studios were like, wait, it's what now?
Yeah. So, in conclusion, Kristy says, run away from pixels as far as you can, as if, I don't know, you were a ghost and Pac-Man was chasing after you. I say don't watch this either. I wouldn't, since I liked it slightly more than Kristy did, I wouldn't say it as strongly, but there's no good reason to watch this. And honestly, if you have young kids and you don't want them to grow up to be sexist little shits, probably don't let them watch this either.
Yeah, pixels, burn it down. Anyway, that's our podcast for this week. Thank you for joining us. You can find Popcorn and Prosecco stuff on the internet at popcornprosecco.com. We're on Twitter at Popcorn Prosecco. We're on Facebook. You can find us on iTunes. We have both the video cast and just the audio only version there. Please subscribe, and if you write a review, that's really helpful for us. And you can find us on the internet. Perry is at Perry Nemer or at P Nemiroff, and she writes for Collider.com. I am at Kristy Puchko on Twitter, and I can write all over the internet, but you can find me at decadentcriminals.com where my career highlights are. Angie?
You can find me on Twitter at AJHAN, and I write for slashfilm.com.
So that's everything. We'll see you guys next week, and we'll be back in full effect.
Pac-Man's a bad guy?